Hey guys, what's going on? Matt O'Leary back with another video. Today, what I want to get into is trying to predict what kind of contract Derek Carr would get if the New York Jets were to sign him. So this past weekend, the New York Jets, they met with Derek Carr. They took him out to a nice Italian dinner in New Jersey. Name something more New Jersey/New York than going to a nice Italian spot for dinner. You just can't. You flat out can't. So he got the full New York, New Jersey metropolitan area exhibit. The whole kit and caboodle he got. So what I wanted to do was try to say, like, okay, if the New York Jets were really trying to sign him, what would it actually take to get a deal done? So I'm going to bring up some comparable contracts or just examples of recent contracts signed and try to give you a relatively comparable contract number, I guess, to some of these. So just last offseason, ironically, Carr signed an extension for 3 years, $121 million, which is a $40.5 million AAV. Now, I don't think it's going to get as high as $40.5 million, but I don't think it's going to be crazy off from there. Spoiler alert. So if you're thinking you're getting some kind of steal or some kind of, cheap deal for Derek Carr, that you're going to be sorely mistaken here. So I was scouring around the internet, and SpotRack, which is a source that I like to use, they did a projection on what they think the contract could be. So their projection is 3 years for $110 million, which is a 36.7 AAV. I think that's a fairly good guess where it's going to be. And, I'll bring up some player comparisons and, some are a little higher, some are a little lower, and trying to get on that number. And obviously, total guarantees are going to come into play here. And the AAV doesn't necessarily have to be what his salary cap hit is. But what I don't think some people understand is there's a chance that Derek Carr's cap hit in his, let's say 3 or 4 year deal could be more than what Aaron Rodgers would definitely be more than Aaron Rodgers is over the next 2 years. And of course you have the dead money after the fact, but that's probably a whole nother topic for a different video. But so SpotRack had it at 110 for 3 years, 36.7 AAV. I think that's probably pretty close. Some other ones that I've seen brought up and some comparable, like two names, Dak Prescott, 4 for 160, which is a 40 million AAV. That was signed 2 years ago, though. So, I don't know if that is because people are going to say, well, don't you think Dak is a better quarterback than Derek Carr? And I would agree with that. I think he probably is a better quarterback than Derek Carr. But when you consider, the market change over the last couple of years, it could look a little bit closer to that. Well, what about Stafford? He signed a 4 year 160 as well. So 40 million AAV for Matthew Stafford with the Rams. Would it get up that high? I think that's the ceiling for it. That's maybe a good place to find our ceiling. I think the 40 million AAV, the 4 for 160 is probably the absolute most that Derek Carr is going to, get in free agency. Someone would say, hey, or his agent, I would assume, say, well, Dak and Stafford got this. They're in a similar tier, which isn't that crazy. I don't really think that's that crazy. I'd say both are maybe slightly better quarterbacks than him when they're on their game. Stafford is probably 7 to 9, and Dak is probably right around 10. And then I would say that you got Carr 12, somewhere like that. So again, it's not a massive drop off, but that's probably on the high end side. Some other ones, like if you go way back to Jared Goff, people forget that after 2019, so this is a long time ago now, Goff got 33.5 million AAV, 4 for 134. I think you're definitely seeing more than that. If you're expecting anything under $33.5 million, I think you are very much so mistaken. Cousins a couple of years ago got 2 for 66, so 33 million AAV. He then just did the 1 year extension for 35. I don't think it's going to be in that 35 range. I think it's could be a little bit of a tick higher than that. The SpotRack one at 36.7 million AAV is again probably pretty close. But what I'm going to project, so what my prediction / projection / just my thoughts on what Carr's contract could look like, I'm going to project 150 over 4 is what the contract would look like, which is a 37.5 million AAV. Now, just based on purely AAV, where does that rank amongst quarterbacks? That would put him 9th. Again, do I think he's the 9th best quarterback in football? Probably not. And you could argue that it's maybe a little bit of an overpay. And I get it, and I'm not going to sit here and argue with you, but my rebuttal, I guess, or the only thing I would say to you is that's free agency. That happens all the time. Guys get signed for probably more than what they are actually worth because you get into bidding wars. And if you really value the position, well, then that's unfortunately what it's going to cost. It's probably going to be, upwards of $35 million a year, maybe closer to 40. I kind of split the difference. I went 37.5. And that's it. And you swallow it. You bite the bullet. And him at that cost isn't awful. It's not. You could still have a functioning roster. You could still have a functioning team. Like I mentioned, I think he's probably somewhere around the 12th best quarterback. And if he's getting paid at least in an AAV level wise, somewhere around that, then I'm okay with it. Also, those numbers are probably going to change pretty soon as well with guys like Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Herbert, going right down the line of guys who are due for extensions, Jalen Hurts. So that AAV might end up looking a little bit normal, and the cap continues to go up year over year. So yeah, right now that $37.5 million might look a little bit scary to you. And to that, I would say I get it. Quarterback contracts are scary, but this is the position that the Jets are in. And if they were to land Derek Carr, who is a lot of people's favorite option, which I get it, it's going to cost you something. It's probably going to cost you close to the between $35 and $40 million a year to get something like that done with Derek Carr. I've seen people think, maybe 28 to 32. If this was 3-4 years ago, maybe, yeah. But at this point, going into 2023, I would be absolutely stunned if Derek Carr comes in for less than $35 million. And if that's what it ends up being in this range of $35 to $40 million AAV, I'm fine with it. I'm absolutely fine with it because that's the cost of doing business in today's league. You in a perfect world, of course, you would like to get out of it for, get yourself a good bargain. You pay him $28 million and, that's you feel a lot more comfortable. That's not the reality. That's not how these things work. You go to the open market. There's a bidding war on you. You get paid more than you probably should. And then you get criticized when you don't play well. That's the ever, revolving door in the NFL and for quarterbacks. But with Carr, it's probably what it's going to cost. So I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts on my contract prediction down below in the comment section or on social media. Also, I want to hear if you disagree or if you agree. Drop what your predictions would be for what do you think it would take to sign Derek Carr in free agency, whether it's the Jets or someone else. Drop them down below. Is it a 3 or a 4 year deal? I think it's going to be the 4 year deal. If it's a 3, then okay. I mean, that's probably even better if it's a 3. But I just think, looking at, Dax and Stafford's age when they got their deals and Goff when he got his deal, I think probably 4 years is what it's going to end up being, even though he just signed a 3-year deal last offseason. So 3 or 4 is pretty standard. It's not going to be he's not getting a 1 or 2 year deal. He's not getting a 5+ year deal, probably 3 or 4 years. So sound off below. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Once again, I am Matt O'Leary. I will talk to you next time.